Welcome to the Great Basin Winter and Fire Potential Outlook for November through February 2016. This is Gina McGuire. We will look at recent weather over the last 30 days and also the expected weather and fire potential forecast for the next 3 to 4 months. Looking at the last month for October, we saw well above normal temperatures, especially over the northern two-thirds of the Great Basin, where many areas saw temperatures 6 degrees or more above normal. Also, very wet conditions continued in October, with well above normal precipitation across much of Nevada, including the southern half of Utah, with near or even slightly below normal precipitation further north across Utah and into Idaho. Also, the Sierra Front saw near or even slightly below normal precipitation. This also takes us to the start of the water year, which was October 1st, 2015. This precipitation, along with precipitation we've seen over the last several months across the Great Basin, has brought some impacts to the drought, especially across the eastern and southern portions of the Great Basin, where now southern and southeast portions of Utah are now not classified in any aspect of drought. However, we're still seeing moderate drought over parts of southern Nevada into southwest Utah and across southern Idaho. However, again, conditions have improved over the last few months. We still are seeing extreme to exceptional drought across the western half of Nevada into the Sierra Front. Due to how long the drier conditions have persisted, it will take much longer to have an effect on the area of drought across the western half of the Great Basin and into extreme southwest Idaho. Now looking at the fuel conditions across the Great Basin, the wet weather we saw over the last 30 days in many areas has allowed fuel moisture to return to near or above normal across most areas. Fuel moisture will likely continue trending upward, with additional moisture at times throughout November, along with higher humidity, cooler temperatures, and longer nights. Annual and perennial fuels are preparing to go into dormancy. Looking at ERCs across the Great Basin, ERCs have dropped significantly throughout the month of October due to these wetter conditions and are now well below normal in all areas. Looking at live fuel moisture conditions, which were last sampled for the year in mid-October in many areas, we have seen the response of the live fuels, and the fuel moisture is now near or above normal in all areas of Idaho and Utah, and also similar conditions across Nevada. However, some areas are still seeing below normal fuel moisture with respect to pinyon juniper. However, that was back in the middle of October. Currently, we are in a state of El Niño with warm sea surface temperatures off the South American coast. El Niño is expected to peak later this fall or early winter, with precipitation increases especially through the winter and spring months. As you can see from the map on the screen, the most common weather patterns for an El Niño winter would bring wetter and cooler weather to the southern tier of the country, including the southern half of California, Nevada, and into the southwest, along with spreading east across Texas, with warmer and drier conditions as you go further north towards the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest. Much of the northern half of the Great Basin is generally in between these two more dominant weather patterns. However, again, we'll likely see some wetter conditions over the southern half of Nevada and Utah, with possibly drier and warmer conditions further north. Now looking at the expected outlooks for the next 8 to 14 days, which takes us through the middle of November, we will likely see below normal temperatures across much of the Great Basin, along with wetter conditions, especially over the northern half to third of the Great Basin up into northern Nevada and Idaho, with drier conditions further south. As we move longer term into the winter from December through February, we'll likely see more of a transition to this classic El Niño pattern, seeing wetter conditions develop over the southern half of the Great Basin, especially as we approach January and February, along with warmer temperatures really in most areas. We'll likely also see drier conditions, especially across Idaho. If we look a little bit further out throughout the spring months from February through April, again, we're seeing this pattern continue, with now the wetter conditions possibly reach a little bit further north across the Great Basin into much of Nevada and Utah, with still some drier conditions over the central Idaho mountains, and again still mainly above normal temperatures across the Great Basin, with the exception of slightly further south and east across the southern half of Utah. If wetter conditions prevail, we may see somewhat cooler temperatures. If we put all these pieces of the puzzle together, the recent weather trends, the current fuel moisture and fuel loading, along with the expected weather pattern over the next several months, we're generally expecting normal fire potential across the Great Basin. And what this means is normal fire potential is typically very low from November through the winter, and we do expect that through the next 3 to 4 months. However, we still could see brief periods of increased fire activity over drier parts of the Sierra Front, Idaho, and northern Utah, mainly after very warm and dry periods and during strong wind events. That concludes our monthly and seasonal briefing. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you for listening.